Picture this. You're living in Edinburgh, Scotland. Here's 1828, smack dab in the middle of the Industrial Revolution. The flat you have bought is modest, given the time. But one night you are about to drift off when you hear a scream from across the street, followed immediately by absolute deafening silence. What could that be, you think? But then you remember something you read in the paper. People within this area have been going missing recently, and foul play is suspected. But little did you know that as you ease your mind back to sleep, that two of the most infamous murderers in history just took their latest victim. William Burke and William Hare were a duo of infamous serial killers in Edinburgh. Burke was a cobbler and was not known for sadistic tendencies. As a matter of fact, he would allegedly sing and dance for his customers to entertain them. Hare would rent out rooms of his home to whomever could afford them, and was described by Brian Bailey, a contemporary author and historian, as illiterate and uncouth, so he probably wasn't the nicest fellow. The two were friends and would often get together with their wives and drink a frankly absurd amount of alcohol. On November 29th, 1827, a man called Donald, who was lodging within Hare's home, died of dropsy. But Hare didn't seem to care, save for the £4 debt that Donald still owed. After Hare told Burke about the debt and the loss it amounted to, the two decided to try and get back the money. How, you ask? Enter stage left, Robert Knox. Knox was a fellow of the Royal College of Surgeons in Edinburgh. There he would often lecture on the subject of anatomy, allegedly gathering crowds as high as 400 students to watch his live dissections. He was considered a fairly influential anatomist, and some would even say that the field wouldn't have been the same if he hadn't lectured. But he really wasn't very ethical. Like many anatomists of the time, he wouldn't bat an eye if someone came in with a corpse dug up from his fresh grave. Burke and Hare sold the corpse to Knox for £7 10 sterling, and one of Knox's assistants allegedly said that the anatomist would be glad to see them again if they just wanted to dispose of another body. That man probably had no idea as what horrors he just unleashed. In any case, Burke and Hare would go on their murder spree. The first murder was either of a miller named Joseph or a salt seller called Abigail Simpson in January or February of 1828. Contemporary sources actually made it unclear as to which came first, but it is thought by most historians that Joseph was more likely the first victim. As such, this documentary will be sticking with Joseph for the description. Whatever the case, when the murder took place, Joseph was in a delirious fever. Both Hare and his wife knew that a delirious customer was bad for business, so Hare got Burke and the two got him drunk. Then they suffocated Joseph with a pillow. When they brought the body to Knox, the two got £10 after selling his body to the mad scientist. From there, the next 10 months were a blur. The duo would find victims, usually people who were lodging in Hare's house, get them drunk, and suffocate them. By their last victim, they had collected £137 through the selling of bodies of 16 individuals to Robert Knox. Their modus operandi, the method in which they killed the victims, remained consistent after the second. Hare would sit on the victim's upper body and stop their breathing, while Burke would lay over the entire body so he could restrict movements and noise. After the second to last victim, a man named James Wilson, or Daft Jamie, was murdered, Burke and Hare took his snuff box and snuff spoon. This was the only time where they kept trophies from their kills. However, throughout these events, police had been investigating, and after the final victim, Margaret Docherty, was found by visitors dead under Hare's bed, a warrant for the arrest of Burke, Hare, and their wives was sent out. The warrant concluded soon enough, and on November 3rd, 1828, the four were put into police custody. Their wives were released, and the Lord Advocate Sir William Ray interrogated Hare. He offered Hare immunity from prosecution if he would confess who killed their victims. Hare obliged, confessing under oath that he and Burke had killed the victims, but absolving Robert Knox of his crime, saying he wasn't responsible for setting them down this dark path and buying corpses. Burke's trial began at 10 a.m. on the morning of Christmas Eve and would not conclude until 9:20 a.m. on Christmas Day. The resulting verdict for Hare's crime was not proven, which is essentially just a way of saying the verdict was inconclusive. Due to the rage of the crowds outside, however, Hare was kept in police custody. Burke was hanged January 28, 1829, in front of a crowd. The crowd's general scale is debated, but is generally thought to be around 25,000. Hare was kept in custody until February 5th, 1829, when the police released him under disguise. But after he left London and then the borders of England, Hare disappeared from public records altogether. His fate is unknown. Since then, the infamy of Burke and Hare has continued onwards and has been mentioned in and turned to film time and time again.
100 years past, Burke and Hare were up to much worse, and things turned out just fine for them.
Didn't they hang him?
Details, Freckle, details.
Now show me your crowbar skills.
Additionally, Knox's reputation was tarnished forevermore.